Joining us now, she is now entering her 20th season as head coach of the Washington Huskies, the all-time winningest coach of any Washington athletic sport. She's been to 8 Women's College World Series, and of course, this year it's also celebrating the 15-year anniversary of her national title in 2009. I speak of Heather Tarr joining us here and in the circle. It's like a milestone anniversary year for you.
Yes, I know. I can't actually believe it. 1/20th season is daunting to think that that actually has come. And I had never thought about like the 15-year like reunion of that '09 championship, but I actually watched a video of the fall of that season last night, and some of the things that have changed on our facility and just in intra program is I can see it's been 15 years.
Yeah, that's true. I remember that team. That was a great team. It was one of the best teams I've ever seen, and I get to talk to somebody, Jen Sally, who brings it up. We talk about it a few often times there. How are you a different coach now than when you started at Washington?
Wow. Well, I think I'm the same person. I am probably a lot more just who I am. I think when you first become a head coach, sometimes you're challenged for, trying to be more than what you need to be, if that makes sense. But I think I learned that pretty quickly in my early days of being a head coach is I just need to be me. It's hard to be someone else. So I think just more so that stuff. Um, I do see myself sometimes not caring as much about certain things like I used to, maybe being fixated on, I don't know, whether you call it OCD or just ultra hyper sensitive to just certain things. But I think I'm pretty much the same person.
Well, one thing I do know is you're definitely a lot busier person as a coach. I've maintained you have the title of the busiest coach in softball because not only obviously you're the head coach in Washington, but of course in 2023, you obviously was once again the head coach of the U.S. national team. Describe that experience as, oh, we got a cameo. We got your new assistant, Victoria Hayward. Hello.
Hello, Eric. How are you?
How you doing? Well, it's a perfect time. I was about to bring up international ball here.
Yeah, we wanted to just like put the remix on you and see how you adjust. So good job.
Nice home.
Yeah, we're both really busy.
Yeah.
I think the international game is a challenge for everyone, whether it be you're coaching Team Canada, you're playing for Team Canada, you're managing the U.S. Team, all that, and you want to give more and you want to be around more for it, but we're all kind of trying to burn the candle at both ends all the time.
Well, let's talk about right here, the two of you, since you're together. This is perfect because I felt this was the biggest off-season move, the best off-season move of the year, and I think a lot of people in the industry agree with Vic coming back to Washington. So let me ask you both. I'll start with you, Coach Tarr. What's it been like having Victoria back?
Well, it's been amazing because, forever since she graduated, she's been everywhere, in a positive way. Like she's been able to experience so many different things and, not really having as much, even time together. Like it just hit and runs. Maybe she's been such a great loyal alumni. She's at least I knew she'd be at our alumni days if she could be. So it's just been nice to actually know that you have every day with each other, so that's been cool. And then besides the fact of watching her influence our program again, I mean, that's obviously just a joy to watch.
Victoria, what's it been like being back?
It's been awesome. I think, I was able to go and learn and figure myself out as a coach, which I'm really grateful for. To then be able to, like, obviously I took part of who I was, which is Washington, to all these other places, and just figuring out how I want to be as a coach. So I feel like I can be my best self here around people that I care about. A program that I really want to pour into, obviously the deep connection from playing here and just it being a huge part of who I am, but just continuing to learn. I feel like this season of coaching for me has been one of growth for sure, just with surrounded by people that know the game at a really high level, and just learning from Coach Tar and learning from the resources that we have here has been transformational for me. And then to be able to do it in a place that I care so much about has been really awesome and really fulfilling.
What's it been like working with Courtney Gano who's got promoted. What's it been like being with her and obviously Lance?
I mean, for me, it's been great. I played with Court for a couple years, and then we've connected back in Athletes Unlimited as well. Um, and just being able to pour back into our experience. So we obviously experience as student athletes, and so our goal is to make their experience better than ours was, and ours was pretty incredible. So that's our challenge every single day. And just getting to learn from Glass, who was a huge part of my development. Although he's a pitching coach, we were really connected, and he was a huge part of my development as a hitter, as a softball player. So to see him and be able to support him and just feel like we're all aligned in our mission is really awesome. There's a lot of trust, and I feel the program growing in a really great way.
Coach, what's it mean to have two of your former players as full-time assistants and a more expanded staff now that we have three four full-time coaches in softball, three full-time assistants?
Well, I think it's what you want, because I think they all come from separate areas of expertise, but they also come from different eras. You're missing Sis Bates being on staff. Maybe you're going to talk about her, but she comes from a more recent era. And so it was kind of cool. Even when we first all got into a room, you have the experiences that Court had with us last year and Sis had with us recently, coaching and playing. And then Vic's like, wait, what? Let me get back in the loop here. And they're like, no, let's hear what you have to bring. So it's a pretty cool compilation of eras and people. And just like she said, like us being able to create an opportunity for young women to come here and play for people that played here that have just like such deep rooted passions. I mean, it's exactly what you want. So I think one of the things that I didn't expect is like, sometimes I'm just like, yeah, this is what we're doing. And you don't think that you have to communicate, because you're just like, inherently with the same brains, but that's actually like the opposite. We actually, I think, have to do a more clear job of communicating so there are no assumptions. So I think we're learning each other still and learning how to do that. And of course, each of the seasons within the seasons kind of bring a new, like, oh yeah, we don't all know how we want to do this.
Well, in my brief time when I was around Victoria, back when she was at UCF, I know she's one of the most organized people I've ever met. Have you picked up on that in her return here? Has that been has fed off y'all as a staff?
Yeah, I think for her to have all of the things that she does be able to work. I mean, she doesn't show it, but she definitely has her stuff together, and it definitely allows her to be able to do the things that she needs to do. And for us, I mean, it's never a sweat. So I know that's partially her Enneagram style, because she and I are kind of the same in that way, but she's a champ, and she rolls that way, and she's a high achiever, that's for sure.
That's very good. Victoria, what's it been like now getting to work for Coach Tarr after playing for her now in her 20th season? What has it been like now being as part of a full-time staff with her?
Yeah, I think kind of Coach Tarr touched on it. Like, we were connected, but not obviously playing here and being with someone every single day for 4 years and then not having that same contact. I feel like coming back, I've seen her change a lot, like just grow into a different person, and just see her be the same person, but also sometimes coach in different ways, and just her own path and becoming her best self as a coach has been really awesome. And I see, it's who we are is why we win, and it's a big part of our program. She is our culture in our program. So seeing that firsthand again after a really long time has been great, and just continuing to raise the standard of what we do. And the standards are higher than when I played here, and that's exactly what I want to do as we pursue another national championship.
All right, Coach, you mentioned Sis Bates. You're right. I was going to mention her. I mentioned her because she played in Chile, part of the U.S. team this year, along with Ali Aguilar, Bailey Klingler in the U.S. team. You also had, obviously, Lindsay Lopez, who we'll talk about, Jillian Celis, who was on the Mexican national team, Taryn Alvelos on the Puerto Rican national team. You were in Chile. You were in Dublin, Ireland. I think you were in Japan. Just describe what it's like when you are in the international game and you're playing against people like Victoria and Jen, and you're all this Washington family here. It's all you all have taken over the international game.
Well, we don't mind having that be what we're thought of, for sure. I mean, these gals having these opportunities to play beyond the college scene has benefited our program so much. I mean, having an athlete that is off for the summer, but she's playing in the international game is such a benefit for having that develop our women. So we definitely encourage it. We're still encouraging it to this day amongst the staff. I mean, as long as they can play and as long as they can contribute and still do what we need them to do, within our staff, we're fans of all of that. But I just think that the international game deserves the best players and deserves the best coaches. So right now, like I said, it's whatever it takes to get that to happen. I mean, it's a lot of alignment, it's a lot of communication. Sometimes it's a lot of lack of maybe, being on the road recruiting fully. So we have to make some sacrifices, of course, but I just love supporting them, and I love supporting the international game in any way possible. It does make it a challenge when you're in the other dugout against them. That's not actually much fun for any of us. But we're working on making it be more fun.
It's not fun.
I bet. Well, obviously, I want both your reaction. Obviously, the big news: softball is officially will be back in the Olympics in 2028 in Los Angeles. Coach, I know you've worked on that behind the scenes. A lot of people have worked behind, but now it's official. It's in LA. Both your reactions to that.
Of course, it's a prideful thing for our sport. I mean, to have softball be on that stage, we believe that, our sport can continue to elevate itself, whether it be internationally or nationally for us. And I don't, I can't even fathom what the next 4 years can actually even look like. All of us together doing this, maybe we're all pursuing, the Olympic situation, but for the time being, we're just trying to do what we can. But we're so proud that softball is on that stage again, and you can plan for it.
Yeah. Retweet. Really excited for our sport. It's where it belongs. We worked really hard to get it back in 2020. So to feel like that momentum has carried on a little bit and to do it in Southern California is incredible. And I think just to your point about us, like having Huskies continuing to play internationally, like we're excited for the dream to be alive for a lot of different people in different eras. And, one of our goals is to empower them to play beyond their 4 years here. So to have people playing during their summers and stuff, and hopefully have this dream be reborn for them is really special, and excited for them to be able to pursue it.
Jen Salling told me this is big for the Canadian national team from a funding standpoint. Victoria talked about that now that they know 4 years in advance you will have an Olympics, because that's kind of the forgotten part of all this as far as the softball in the Olympics is. A lot of countries stop funding if there is no softball in the Olympics.
Yeah. I mean, resources are everything, just the opportunity to spend time together, to have good quality competition. And in Canada, that's hard for us to access. So the funding piece is big in terms of not only growing the sport in Canada, it's a pretty small population of people that play softball there, but just continuing to provide competitive opportunities to continue to grow, which grows the game. Just having more opportunities for USA to play, Team Canada, or have some of the professional leagues be able to have some international competition. I think we saw a really great foundation of pro softball and kind of that environment cultivate for the build up to the 2020 Olympics. So hopefully we can, Team Canada can be an active participant in that with some good funding, and just be able to grow the game and have more people playing leading up to 2028.
That's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Coach, I'm not going to ask you about some of the driving stories I've heard about Dublin, Ireland among the staff. That we'll save that for another day. But I've heard stories. So I'm going to have to get all of you at some point together to talk about Ireland down the road. But I want to ask you both this. You both, in respective last year, made the Super Regionals in historic fashion. So I'm curious, Coach, starting with you, did you keep track of Victoria and how she was doing and other, getting to the Super Regional? Then Victoria, I definitely want to ask you, where were you when Washington made that incredible comeback to get to the Super Regionals in that Game 7, that memorable Game 7 will be talked about forever, which now I'm sure 10,000 people claim they were there, against McNeese. I'm curious where you both, from that standpoint, because that's a big milestone for both of you there.
Yeah, I mean, of course, we have our eye on all of our gals that are out there that we like to follow. So it's a tough weekend for everybody because there's a lot going on, especially the regionals, a lot of teams, a lot of games being played. Of course, you got to take care of your own. But, some of the matchups would have matched up. So we knew that eventually, our bracket matched up with their bracket. So you're always keen on that when you're in those moments. But for us, there was some, crazy stuff going on down in the LA regional. So I think that was happening kind of like around the time where we were playing. So you were only getting like the updates or the, quote unquote drama of whatever was going on after the fact. So I didn't really watch hardly any of it because we were all kind of going on at the same time. So that was my kind of recollection of being, kind of being a fan of what those guys were doing.
Yeah, so before the day started, I knew we had to win one game and I knew that they had to win one game. So during our game, I'm assuming that it was already over. So we celebrated. I don't even have my phone. We're celebrating on the field in LA. We're going through the parents saying thank you. And one of the parents of one of my players at the time came up to me and I was like, how's Washington? And they were like, they're down to their last 3 outs. They're losing in game 2. I was like, no, it's game 1. They're like, no, it's game 2. They're losing. And so I sprinted to the little berm and got out my phone and literally turned it on for the 7th inning and watched the comeback the whole time. And I'm just like sitting there. A couple of my players were like gathered around, just losing my mind. But thinking ultimately like, wow, am I going to go to a super regional and Washington is not, which would be bananas. But was turn it on, the Magic on Montlake happened, and then it was really awesome. So got to watch that magical moment, and now on a lot of highlight videos I've watched it many more times. I could recite it back to you if you needed. But yeah, really really cool to be able to watch that and the alum or to have my players know that I cared about it and like, Vic, you got to turn it on was kind of cool, and we all watched together, so that was awesome.
There we go, Coach. See, you hadn't scored for 13 innings. What we needed was Victoria to turn it on, and the offense clicked. It's an omen.
That's the sign of the great things to come for the future is her magic powers.
Magic powers. Well, let's talk about this year's team. Very young team, especially offensively. First, you lose a great senior class, so let's pay homage to that senior class because I remember talking to you at the World Series after it was over. You were just happy that they got to get back into the World Series and kind of turn that cycle again about, every 4 years, one of your players gets to the World Series. But speak to that senior class that left a great legacy there.
It's such a big class, especially when you consider the 2 that were with us that chose to go elsewhere in their after they graduated with Kelly Lynch and Jadelyn. So, I mean, it's overwhelming to think about the turnover, if you will, but we knew it was happening. I mean, all COVID, how you're storing the scholarship money, how you're storing those players. And I think that's what made even the end of last season one so special, like you said, of having that group have that opportunity to get back to the World Series, because several of them went their freshman year. But I think just for the most part, you have we were, I don't know what you call it, but we had the abundance of riches in experience. And it does put a lot of pressure on you. I think during that regional final, I kind of resigned myself after we hadn't scored for 13 innings. And I'm just like, you know what? Like, I could be totally fine if this group ended here. Like, you hate to think like that, but I remember thinking at the time, like, we could be fine. Like, we're fine. We know who we are as a program. We know who these players are as people and how much they've given to this program and how much they sacrificed for us. And I think in that moment also, along with Victoria turning it on, I feel like that was almost the magic, like bubble that burst in the moment. It's just like, I'm fine. Like, I don't need these players to like feel like, they need the end result or the results of playing the game to say they're great people and they have grown as people. So one, it was, it's overwhelming to have them gone, but my goodness, like we benefited from so much of their services for 5 years. So it's time for them to move on, and it's time for us to grow a whole new crop of people. And while it is, under an underexperienced team, we have experience in so many other ways that is going to be so exciting for us to develop.
Both of you as coaches, I mean, I've had many coaches tell me that game now is going to be used to their players. Anytime they're down, they're going to say, this is not over. Here's the example. Washington proved that. Like, you realize that now that that game is going to be used as motivation across the country, the rest of the sport. I mean, that's gotta give you some goosebumps from that standpoint. That game is going to have a lasting effect on the sport and how coaches and try to motivate their players, doesn't it?
Yeah, you've heard that. I mean, even this summer, like the local little league teams are singing that song, and that's cool. I mean, that's what we are doing this for, is to do it in a way that inspires other people to try to be great within their own selves, whatever sport you play, whatever craft you craft. I think for us to have that as something that people look at, that's really a prideful thing. Now, if you go back and you rewind and say that's what's going to happen, like, I don't know if I can tell you I would have lived through it, but it's pretty magical, and it was a miracle. And the people that were involved, and even thinking like to the announcers and the TV talent that was involved, like they were a part of that as well. So we all shared, a special time, and it's pretty cool to know that that can live on forever.
Yeah, you got tackled by your teammate, your players, as you were doing the interview in the post game. It was an incredible, lasting image. Vic, you obviously now this offense. It's a young offense. How does your approach, if at all, changes with a young offense? Do you have to be more patient with them? Does your talk about that process of having some young offense, talented players, but very young?
I think, I think just in having like a new presence, as someone coming in with not really any relationships with the girls and just not really knowing a whole lot about what they had experienced over the last couple of years. I think that helps us actually. I think that just the newness that I am able to bring helps with, I've had a lot of buy-in, and I feel like they were really ready for some new ideas, some new energy, and just like they're excited about the opportunity that we're young, yes, we're inexperienced, yes, but they know that they're really talented, and we will be able to do some really awesome things. So I think there's been a lot of learning. But I think that this group was the perfect group to have my first year with. And I've just really been proud of their growth, and just seeing them kind of from fall until now. I see stronger, more confident, more durable women that I know are ready for whatever's going to come this season. And I'm ready for us to grow a lot and learn a lot, and just know that the best is ahead for this group. And we're pretty excited about it.
Coach, you spoke highly about Brooke Nelson, that you were excited about her opportunity this year and your media availability you just did recently, playing first base and pitcher. Just speak about her. She's kind of been waiting her turn, and she's part of this pitching staff that, is probably the experienced part of your team right now.
Yeah, when you think about Brooke, and even leaving last year, going into this year, knowing that she has waited her turn, and she really made good on her opportunity last year at the end of the year in that McNeese game, being able to come in and close it out in that seventh inning, and being ready when her number was called. I mean, that's like true Husky fever and what our program's all about. So for someone like her to stay on this year with us and know that her role is going to increase, but actually, like, just watching her prepare for it and watching her lead from that is a pretty special time for me personally. I mean, I grew up a Washington player. I grew up in the state. I grew up, knowing the University of Washington. Now Brooke grew up actually with the softball program, unlike me, but I just am proud to say, she's going to have a big opportunity, and can't wait to watch her. I mean, that runs pretty deep, not just like that she's been sitting for 5 years time or 4 years time for her turn, but the best is to come for her, and that is exciting for us.
Of course, she's part of a pitching staff that's got Ruby Malin, who was an All-American last year. I remember last year everybody was wondering what's going to happen with the pitcher. Well, Ruby grew up, won 18 games. Lindsay Lopez won 14 games. You've got a freshman in Sydney Peters as well. Speak about your pitching staff, and especially that growth that you saw from Ruby last year to help get you to the World Series.
Well, I think looking at the program, I mean, you said it well. Like, Ruby did grow up, and she's super capable of being a current star, but a future star in this game. And so that's awesome for us to be able to lean on, her experience. She went through so many things. I mean, just as a human, mentally, physically, emotionally, and then going on into this year, it's going to be harder for her because she's going to be a little bit more known, but she understands what is ahead, and that's exciting. But I think watching Lindsay Lopez come into her own as a pitcher last year was it was really cool to see her just really get comfortable and carry us a lot at times. So that was really rewarding. And then, of course, we talked about Brooke already, hoping to get Brooke some more time that is going to help our entire pitching staff have the balance that it can have from an innings responsibility standpoint. And then Sydney Peters, I mean, she's a breath of fresh air. She's got a lot to offer this staff, and I think she's in a perfect role for herself, but also for this team to be able to have someone of her capabilities to be able to round out this really experienced pitching staff.
Sydney is part of 4 freshmen on your roster. You have 3 transfers. Speak of the new faces and how they've blended in with this team.
Yeah, it's a small group, so for us to, like labor that whole chore, I guess, of bonding and such, it's hasn't been that hard. But I think just what's been great to see is how our current team has embraced the newcomers, specifically like Jillian Solis. It's been really cool to see her have an opportunity at our place, having had so much success at San Diego State, and just to try to help her elevate her game and become the player that ultimately she wants to be, and help a team do some great things. But she's actually, look at her, and she's one of our most experienced players, and we're going to rely on her a lot.
Riley Horto, I'm always impressed by her when she talks, whether it be in the post game in the World Series or media availability. She feels like a natural leader. Am I accurate in that in talking? And how important is that for her? Is she one of those on this group, obviously with such a young team?
Yeah, I think we have several of those in this group. I look at our junior class specifically, but the 2 that come to mind from that class are Riley Holtorf and Kinsey Fiedler. They are both just people you want to be around. Kinsey's fun-loving and funny, and then Riley's thinks like a coach, and of course she's been raised by her dad and been on her dad's team forever. So she's a great leader and someone that not only we look to for leadership, but also the team looks to. So it's great to have her as an example. And it's also great to watch her come into her own as a player and really being confident in who she is as a player and what we need from her, not only on the field, but off the field.
Do you feel your pitching staff kind of has to carry the load early until the offense kind of finds its identity being so young, or especially with the challenging schedule that you've built once again? You're going to be at Puerto Vallarta this week, and then obviously going straight to Florida for a couple weeks of challenging games, including the one in Clearwater. Do you feel the pitching has to kind of carry them until the offense kind of figures itself out?
I think there's going to be all kinds of games go on. You hope that they're 0-0 until you get the run that you need, but I don't really think that this group thinks like that. I think this group thinks it's a whole game, and whatever the case may be, we got to find a way to outscore the other team. And so more so that is this group's I think thought process. It's not so much like, okay, we've got older pieces in the pitching part, so let's let that hang on. I think more so it's this group being confident in its own self, because it doesn't necessarily, like you say, we have to figure our offense out. It's just more so our chemistry that needs to be figured out, and learning while you're doing it, and not getting too high, not getting too low, but just more so as a whole team trying to figure out how to win games is our objective.
You've obviously been asked and will continue to be asked about the fact this is the final year in the Pac-12 before you're going to be moving on to the Big Ten. I'm more curious, how will this change affect your future non-conference scheduling? How much of an effect will that have? Because obviously you're going to be traveling more now in conference starting next year than you do currently. So I'm curious, how will that affect your non-conference scheduling?
Wow. Okay. Well, that's a big question. I have a big answer for it, because I'm not sure a lot of people know this, but I was a geography major at UW, and I am really interested in maps. And so just seeing the distribution of the conference go from a north, south, West Coast, related geographical conference to now, going to the Big Ten, we're like lateral across 3 time zones in the northern climate. It's a complete flip, if you will. So there's all kinds of stuff, but I think it actually benefits our non-conference schedule. If, when we do move, because we can then explore the, I guess, older territories of the Pac-12 in our pre-conference stuff. Now, we do like to go where our players are from. So, on a one-off, maybe getting to the Midwest or back to Texas and such, but I think it does give us a lot more opportunity to stay on the West Coast for our pre-conference.
I think I remember you mentioning this. I want to know more about this majoring in geography. Where did that come from there?
Well, I always liked place name geography, and I liked drawing maps of whatever it was. Loved maps. And so I ended up just doing what I liked to do in college. And I was like, okay, I think I could teach geography. So I wanted to be a ninth grade geography teacher in addition to a high school Spanish teacher. So I did a lot of geography and Spanish, and at UW, it's just kind of what you do. You don't really have a lot of sports related majors. So I thought, like, okay, I like the subject matter, I'll do it. And then my division of geography was called Geographic Information Systems. So lucky for me, I wasn't that smart in it, or I would have invented Google Maps, because when I was in college, that wasn't there, and I just couldn't think like that. So anyways, all the layers of geographic data is what my major is in.
That's incredible, and it's perfect because you travel literally all over the world now as part of your
Yeah,
profession. Isn't that kind of ironic?
it's true. You say, I think a lot of times it's good information to speak from, because personally, I had an interest, and you might think like, oh, you major in this to equal this career. And I can always just speak to, like, do what you're passionate about. And, in some way, shape, or form, it'll always relate back to what it is that you're going to do in your life to make money.
That's incredible. Love that story. That is awesome. All right, couple quick things before I let you go. Sources told me you followed the Washington football team during the playoffs and were there in the national championship game, as I understand it. I don't know if you were in the semis or not, but what was that experience like for you?
Well, first of all, I mean, we're super proud of what Coach DeBoer was able to do while he was here. I mean, I, of course, like, had a way close connection with him because, we recruited Alexis, and she's now a part of our program incoming. But just to watch him do his work, and just how he managed his staff, and how he did his business. I mean, just those results, it's a byproduct of who he is as a person. So just proud to watch him do his job. And I didn't want to go to the New Orleans Sugar Bowl because I had a feeling that we would make it to the national championship. So I held out, and I decided to go. Sadly, we weren't able to play our best. And in the end, he had to make a tough decision to leave here. But it was a proud moment to see so many of my classmates that were here in the 90s. I followed that whole group of national champion football players from the 1991 team. So all of those guys were there. So many of my classmates. It just brings you back to, like, man, you pick a place to go to school because you like the people, you like the culture, you like the traditions of the school. And just looking back, like 30 years time now, you're like, we were still so close with each other, and that was probably the most rewarding opportunity of it all. And then several of our national championship women were there watching, and so getting to see them was a pretty cool experience.
Yeah, and winning the Pac-12 championship, going out on top. Is that something you bring up? I got to believe those players feed off of the fellow success of the student athletes. Is that something that gets brought up about? Hey, let's go out on top, winning that Pac-12 that be historic.
Well, I think that's like a nice dream, and I think always in the Pac-12, it's just like, it's almost more daunting to think that you want to try to win the Pac-12 championship than go to the World Series or win a national championship, because especially now when we have our tournament. That last year was our first ever tournament, and it was hard. It was hard to win a game and then lose a game. So it's a good experience. But for us to try to win it all and be on top, I mean, that's like high hopes, and that would be amazing. And I'm pretty sure we're all going to feel the effects of, like, oh, this is the last time we're going to go here. This is the last time we're going to go there, those types of things. But we're definitely proud to be part of this conference. There is no conference like it. It's an amazing conference to be a part of, that's for sure. And especially this year, there's some amazing pitchers, there's some amazing programs. And we're excited to be a part of how that all plays out.
Definitely. Hopefully somebody's documenting like this as a documentary. I think it'd be pretty awesome. Last question. What are you looking forward to finding out about your group when you get to Puerto Vallarta, play that great competition you're going to be playing there, and then Clearwater, that you have some questions in your mind that you're looking forward to finding out about this group by playing of that competition?
Well, I think it's always the same in terms of like where we go and kind of the caliber that we're going to compete against. We just say it's going to be really hard. It's going to be a challenge. And for us to just kind of refine this group's system, this group's way of processing the highs and the lows, that's what I'm really excited to coach them through. I mean, you say that you want to practice like you play and you want to be able to, mimic the playing environment, but really the truth is in the next 4 weeks for us in terms of crafting our system, and of course having our new coaches with us and using their insight and their wisdom and their leadership. That's what I'm most excited about, seeing how that all meshes.
Well, Coach, looking forward to seeing your team play there, and looking forward to seeing that great matchups there in Clearwater. I'll see you there in person. But thanks for taking the time from the busy schedule. Thanks for the cameo from Victoria Hayward. For those that are listening, no, we did not ignore her for the last 15, 20 minutes. She had to take care of some things. So, but it was awesome to see her. But thank you as well for always taking the time to talk to me and talk about softball and the international and the college game. Good luck this season, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Well, thanks for having me. And I just want to wish everybody the best of luck this year, and just can't wait to see what happens in the end.